Here we are. Hi, Facebook. Hi,
Hello,
YouTube.
everyone.
BloodStream podcast live from BDC 2021. And we can be from BDC because BDC is not located anywhere. It's just located on your computer.
It's located in your hearts.
That's more true. She's Amy Board. I'm Patrick James Lynch. You likely already knew that. And here we are, day 2 with pre-content, day 3. I don't know. This is just going to be a running thing.
2.5. I don't know.
We have a bunch to discuss. We have some great guests coming on.
We have great guests today.
Starting in like 10 minutes. So we'll, which is good. I mean, I think that makes for good content and good conversations.
I do too.
We just can't get too lost in conversation here
At the top.
You know, if I was more prepared, I would have thought about where we should start.
I have something to start to talk about.
You are
just
prepared.
Like super quick. You just got out of a session.
Yes.
We talked about this yesterday. Our science fair, of course, that you guys know we've had to do virtually, and you named the science fair session the State of Science, which is funny because that's what NHF
more than that
calls their big like science conference, which made me laugh. I didn't realize that. But anyway, how did it go? You had like some heavy hitters in there.
Yeah, it went really well. Len Valentino, CEO, president of NHF, was in there. Dr. Robert Sidonio was in there.
Also
clinician researcher, awesome, out of Georgia. And Dr. Jonathan Roberts, who's also a man living with hemophilia out of Illinois.
One of my faves.
And works alongside Dr. Michael Tarantino. It was a 30-minute session on like the state of science.
Yeah.
Funny because we did our rehearsal just before the session, and Dr. Sidonio mentioned like, "Oh, that's funny. It's the same name as the summit. I'm sure that's not a coincidence." And then I was thinking like, "No, that's not a coincidence. That's a mistake that I made. I wouldn't have recommended it have the exact same name, but since it does, let's use it as an opportunity." Because part of the session was like not only for each of them to give some top line, but to point out where else at the BDC and through NHF you can access the science that's most applicable and relevant for you and your family where you're at. So it actually gave us a great opportunity to talk about that summit, which is only a few weeks away. It's like September 15th through the 19th, something like that. So it's literally weeks away. And Len did a quick, like, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And I can't recite exactly what he said. By the way, that session is going to come through on the BloodStream podcast. We're getting that audio from NHF. Thank you, NHF, for that.
Cool.
So that session is going to be made available in audio form through the podcast. But as he was running through it, I was like, man, this is comprehensive. Like if you're going to a session called the State of Science at the BDC, it's like I feel like every one of those attendees ought to go to the summit because it just sounds like it's extremely comprehensive and exactly what science nerdy types like me. I mean, I'm not like a science nerd, but I'm nerdy for the information.
Right.
So yeah, it went really, really well. I do have to point one thing out.
Yes.
Which is that I am sweating.
No.
Profusely.
Oh,
and
no.
Since we are just doing real talk right now, and this is like the hallway conversation, and I'm not having to do presenter Patrick stuff, I don't mind pointing out this is with deodorant and antiperspirant.
You don't smell.
Thank you. Well, that's so something's working.
Right. Oh,
in fairness, I think I have to get more of the non-sweating. I only recently learned that like antiperspirant and deodorant, like one means don't smell, one means don't perspire. I didn't realize that like I had to pay attention to that. I've just been throwing stuff under my arms for a couple decades, you know, and didn't really know the difference. Now I'm learning the difference the hard way. You can tell which I'm out of. But weren't we talking about sweating yesterday? And I was like, I don't sweat unless I sweat.
And I was talking about sweating with a friend literally on Tuesday night.
Wow, so this is a big sweating week for you.
It is a huge sweating week. One of my dearest girlfriends who happens to work here, uses like Under Armour or Old Spice. No, Old Spice. She uses like dude deodorant. She likes the smell, which I was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
I think I had the opposite experience when Natalie was like, can you please never use Old Spice again? In fact, maybe I should blame her for why there's variants in my antiperspirant deodorant. Natalie, we need what works. Old Spice, look, Old Spice works. All right, I'm not going to be that disgusting, though. You don't need to look at that constantly. So what time do we have here? 12? Oh, good. So we do have a few minutes.
Yeah.
Last night was the Teen Impact Awards. We have to talk about that.
We have to talk about it.
Congratulations to all the honorees.
Congratulations to the Adam Lynch Scholarship recipients.
Yeah, big time.
You guys are doing great.
And the thank you notes from the scholarship recipients and like the gratitude that's been expressed has also been really sweet. So thank you guys for that as well. What were some of your highlights from it? It's something we work on all year. There's so many different elements to it. And then like, you know, it's one of those things that takes place in 60 minutes and then you're like, oh wow, that was a lot. And like, where were you when it ended? What really stood out to you? What were you feeling?
I knew what was coming because I had been a part of it, but
Sure.
it's been one of, and I think the whole team here at Believe can say this. I think it's one of the most favorite things that we've done ever.
Yes.
It was a wonderful concept, and our phenomenal producer and video lead, Drama Del Rosario, was amazing.
Shouts out to Drama. He crushed.
Drama crushed. So it was a fantastic concept, and I think one of my favorite things about it, though, like it was a great concept, but what Drama did that I love, I mean, he did so many things, but what I loved is he facilitates conversation and cultivates conversation with our teens in this virtual world. It's been difficult, and yet we were able to hear from every teenager. We were able to hear their stories, and I just, it was just my favorite part. And then not to mention all of our celebrity cameos that showed up to the award show.
Seriously. I mean, Meryl, Brad, Dolly. There were just so many
Taylor
lovely
Swift?
Yeah, of course you
It was
did.
on my t-shirts. So if you haven't seen the Teen Impact Awards, you have to go see it for the Taylor Swift cameo. Duh, because there is a Taylor Swift cameo that happens to involve me, the Taylor Swift fan.
Sort of true. You can, if you're on Instagram, Amy's Stories is another place you can get a little sneak peek, a little taster of that moment. But it is available on replay.
I will be reposting that probably every month, like just regularly.
Good to know. Tag me always. If you want to watch it, it's available on replay. We've said it a few times, and we'll keep saying it because I just think this is one of the best parts of the virtual conference.
Yeah.
Most sessions are available for 30 days on replay. So as long as you're registered, which is free, you can watch most of all of the like nearly hundreds. I don't even know. I got 12 pages. There's a lot of sessions. You can watch most of them for 30 days, including the Teen Impact Awards. So you just go into the sessions, click August 26th. That's the date of the Teen Impact Awards, scroll, and you'll see it. Nicole and I are our little headshot icons are what's featured. So that's how you can find it. But yeah, I have one complaint.
And I think it's my same complaint.
I have one complaint.
Same complaint.
It's listed technically as networking event.
Yes.
Teen Impact Awards. And it's always been like, that's one of the categorizations of events at the BDC. I think it was there was 2 sessions going, one on like hemophilia A, cool, and one networking event, us. There was no chat feature.
No chat feature.
There was no ability to interact or engage or, might I say, network with anyone. And considering that was one of the high watermarks of last year's conference and something that I feel like everybody who was a part of it in one way or another appreciated, logging in, and when the video started, I was excited. But then and you and I were texting, like, is there a thing what's missing? And that's just what it was. So I do have to express that, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. But frankly, I hope we're not in a virtual environment again.
I know.
So I hope that's not a thing again.
I know. We can kind of, I think we should pass thoughts on, as they make it better. I do think the platform that NHF is using for this conference is very slick. It's a cool thing, but that's one of the things. Like, there wasn't a chat feature in the video session. I think.
A networking event.
Was there a chat in your science thing just now?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we're grateful to NHF. They are very good partners to us on the conference and in making these things happen.
Yes.
There's a ton of considerations.
Yes.
But just got to be honest, that was something that was a pain point and a frustration. I mentioned on my Facebook page, I was like, because I posted like, it's starting in 10 minutes. And then I was like, well, if anyone wants to use this thread for comments, then they can. But what's cool is, and this happens every year, start seeing the various chapters who have had one or more honorees featured that night. They then wind up sharing posts that are highlighting like screen grabs of those honorees. So like the Teen Impact Award, because that's the biggest thing. Like, I want to be able to get in there and chat with people because it makes me feel good. But more importantly, I want the teens and the families to feel seen and heard and appreciated. And when it's just the video playing and there's like no engagement, I just worry that like it takes away a little bit from feeling seen and heard and validated. But when I see all the other activity, it makes me feel a little bit better about it. So anyway.
And I will say hats off to several chapters for highlighting their honorees last night, and yeah, is good. And parents, I happened to, I stalked some parents, so it was great to see some parents.
All right, we're going to be joined in about 3 minutes here by our friend Jonathan Hill.
Yay!
And there's a lot that we could say about Jonathan Hill, but most notably, most relevant to the BloodStream media world, Jonathan's memoir, as many of you probably already know, we adapted for a graphic novel that came out last year called, or was it earlier this year? Time is a flat circle since March of last year. I can't even remember anymore. Blood of the Paladin. It's an incredible graphic novel, and there's an audio adaptation through BloodStream Media for those who like listening to audio. But it's about Jonathan's story, and it's a mix of his personal journey with hemophilia and co-infections, along with the world of Dungeons and Dragons it brought to life, and how that world helped Jonathan cope, helped Jonathan find community, helped Jonathan just move forward as he was going through these monumental health challenges in his life. It's a great story, and I think very well told as both a graphic novel and an audio adventure. We have a teaser for it that we're going to run here in just a moment. And then on the heels of that, Amy and I will be joined by Jonathan to talk about Blood of the Paladin, his journey, his BDC 2021 experience. Jonathan, I saw you commented during the science session right now, so maybe he can tell us what he thought about that session. So let's do it. Let's play the teaser. Let's bring on Jonathan and chat. Here we go. This is the teaser for Blood of the Paladin.
When I was 2 years old, I bit my tongue, and it wouldn't stop bleeding. It took the doctors some time to diagnose me with severe hemophilia A. My name is Jonathan Hill, and this is my story. My parents were determined to teach me that I had no limits in my life because of hemophilia.
Just put one foot in front of the other, one step at a time.
As a young boy, I felt like I was always in the hospital. I was dying to escape. And that's when I discovered Dungeons and Dragons.
What's this? What's a paladin? He looks invincible.
That's when everything really changed. All of a sudden, there were no more limits. We slayed monsters, both real and imagined.
John, I'm sorry. You tested positive for the HIV virus.
That can't be true. Am I going to die?
So we brought together 2 graphic novel artists to kind of capture the very different worlds that Jonathan lived in.
I want young people in our community to know our shared history. I wanted them to be able to see how we got to where we are today.
The teaser. It's a very powerful teaser. Well,
It is a powerful teaser.
with that, let's bring on the author and star of Blood of the Paladin, Jonathan Hill.
Hi,
Jonathan
Jonathan!
Hill, welcome back to the BloodStream podcast.
Hi, buddy.
Amy, Patrick, great to see you guys.
Great to see you too, man.
Congratulations once again on Blood of the Paladin. And, we haven't talked about this in a little minute. I imagine, like, as it's been out now for a little while and people continue to find it and engage with it, that you get feedback and hear from people, and that your experience of, like, what this is and what it's meant is evolving. So where are you with Blood of the Paladin? Like, what have you been hearing, and what is it meaning to you right now at the end of August 2021?
Yeah, that's a great question, Patrick. I've just kind of been blown away by, the impact it's having on people, and how it's touching people and kind of bringing people together around this topic. I guess it technically got released in February of this year, but we've been working on it for a couple of years. And, but, it's just amazing, whether it's the fact that we got a little story on it covered on Dragon Plus, the online D&D magazine.
Yeah.
That a reader of that reached out and wrote a really touching message about his brother that had hemophilia.
Oh, wow.
And he, and he has passed. And but you know, he remembered that his brother taught him how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and that really connected two aspects of his world back together. So you know, it's stories like that it's just, it blows me away.
So great.
You know, the friends that you made through D&D growing up are prominently featured in Blood of the Paladin, and I know to this day remain people who are very important in your life. Can you share with us a little bit about how your relationships have grown over the years, from being, you know, players of Dungeons and Dragons to that and so much more?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned the podcast of reading of Blood of the Paladin, and there's some other sessions in there, kind of like a background on
Right.
how the graphic novel came together, and you can actually hear my friends talking about the graphic novel and our relationship. So I encourage people to check that out. But you know, as far as you know, my circle of friends, you know, we've been through a whole lot together, and you know, it started by going on these fantastical adventures together, making characters, building worlds, slaying dragons, and just, you know, doing crazy stuff. You know, every weekend, that's what we do. We go, you know, lock ourselves up in the basement or whatever, and just play D&D, you know, till all hours of the night, till somebody's mom came down and said, go to bed. You know, that kind of a thing.
Right. The good
And
old
then-
days.
Yeah.
Exactly, the 80s. But you know, but then with you know, myself finding out about my AIDS exposure, my HIV status, you know, they were the first group of friends I told, you know, back in the
Oh, Jonathan.
late 80s, and that was scary. You know, that
Sure,
was a
yeah.
really scary time, but you know, I really felt close to them, and I felt like I could trust them. Now, I didn't know what they would say, but they just rallied around me, and you know, really, that started this just whole nother level to our friendships. And the great thing is, it's continued to this day. Now, we live all across the country,
Yeah.
but we found a way to play D&D through like a Zoom kind of thing, you know, on a regular basis. So, you know what, 36 years later, we're still playing Dungeons and Dragons. So there you go.
There you go. Awesome. And you know what? The last couple of years, with the amount of lockdown and quarantine, I'm sure it was a gift to have the online platform and that rich history to go off of, to just escape into that world and get out all this mess for a little while. I want to ask you about the BDC, because we are doing this during the BDC. So many different sessions. I did just mention to Amy that I think you were in the State of the Science session that I was just doing with Drs. Valentino, Sidonio, and Roberts. But what's your experience of the conference been like so far? What sessions have you checked out? What's caught your eye? What are you most looking forward to? Where are you at BDC 2021?
Well, you know, from a socialization side, I've really enjoyed your guys' live streams from
Thanks.
BloodStream. You know, learning about you know, Amy's love or fanaticism for Formula One racing was definitely something that I didn't know about. So that's
Same.
cool.
Yes. May we all become Formula One fans.
Exactly. But you know, as far as sessions, you know, I always try and go to the adult men, or whatever they're calling that track. You know, they have different tracks that, you know, that each of the sessions are coded under.
Yeah.
And that session really, I mean, that track really only has 2 sessions this year. One was on mental stamina, and that's not going to be recorded because it's kind of private, you know, what people say. But I really wanted to go. I've known Dana Francis since the late 80s. You know, he was our social worker at UCSF. So, you know, I really wanted to go to that, and yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. And then I ended up watching the Big Bloody talent show the other night, and Avra just stole the show, man. She was awesome.
Yeah, she is excellent.
And some of those talents were just, I was amazed. That little girl that
I know.
Cosette, what?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I was ready to cast Les Mis.
I know.
I'm like, all right, we're gonna do the Bleeding Disorders Les Mis cast. Let's do it.
It's very tempting. That's very, very, very tempting.
I kind of want to go back to the session you were talking about previous with Dana. What does like mental stamina mean to you? I've never heard that term.
Well, it was really a mental health session, really talking
Yeah.
about mental health. But I think it was trying to approach mental health from a strategy perspective, to get the panelists to talk about some of the ways that they cope and handle the mental stress.
Yeah.
And when they even talked about, how things have even got more challenging with the pandemic. That's a whole nother layer of mental stress, and how do people navigate it? And there was a lot of talk about, building your support network around yourself and people that you can be honest with. And there was also a lot of discussion about how in our culture, men tend to not talk about their feelings traditionally. So, really trying to encourage everybody to realize that's something you have to work on too, just like your physical health. And it was a good session.
That's great.
I wondered too how much, like, with younger people, and this is a generalization and I could just be wrong, but I feel as though generally speaking, younger people are more open-minded and willing to be forthcoming about what their experience is than perhaps I was at 12, 16, 22.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that, like, given the awareness has really been elevated around mental health challenges, not just in our community, but everywhere the last few years, I'm really hopeful that we're not going to regress too much from this more comfortable. It's still not, there is still stigma. It's still not the easiest thing to discuss, but we've made progress. And I'm inclined to think, because of the young people involved, that we're going to continue to make progress in this area.
Yeah.
At least that's my hope.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Patrick. I agree. It does, whether it's these young people and there's comfortableness with social media or whatever, but I do feel like there's more discussions. And I hope it does continue because, being honest and just being open is so refreshing to have those kinds of relationships with people. So, yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you, when you mentioned earlier how scary it was to open up to your D&D guys about your diagnosis, did you, it occurred to me, in my experience, sometimes opening up is that frighten me, not find compelled one or more of the people maybe speaking to step forward with something that they were inclined to share, but maybe a little afraid to share themselves. When one of us is willing to be open, it can encourage other people to be open. So I'm curious, did your coming forward with your diagnosis, did that, in thinking about like the relationship that you guys have evolved over these 30 some odd years, did that have a role to play in it? Did you find that they then kind of came forward to you a little bit more or shared more intimately with you, either then or in the future?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, each person's a little bit different, but I would say, we've been able to be really honest with each other when you're struggling with, whatever it is, life decisions, decisions about where you're going to live, or, family issues or whatever, being able to have that close circle that you can be honest, say, my marriage just doesn't feel alive right now, or whatever, and be able to just talk about it in with your friends. So yeah, 100%. For me, even shortly after I told them about my HIV status, just seeing them, whether it was on the schoolyard or whatever, if somebody made an AIDS joke, because I'm sorry, back in the 80s,
yes, people
were horrible and they did horrible things. And, people, there's a common taunt on the playground, which was, I hope you get AIDS and die. I mean, that's what people were saying, and my friends would just step right up and say, that's not funny, and they weren't revealing anything about me, but they knew it was hurting me. And that was a big deal, that they knew that was an area that was very painful for me, and it wasn't okay, so, to kind of have that. And then later, just like when I have these horrible bleeds, like one time when we were playing D&D in the middle of nowhere, they would, if a bleed came on, they'd click, they'd be like, put the game down. This is what needs to be dealt with now. So
I'm getting goosebumps. Do you watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Are you so nostalgic? It's like a bunch of kids playing D&D in the basement.
Yeah, we've kind of tried to assign different characters to one of our groups, because that's who we are. No, totally. In fact, when I had my liver transplant in 2017, Ian flew out that night and was there when I woke up. My best friend Ian, he's in the book.
Yeah.
He flew out from Northern California. He stayed with me for like a week while I was in the hospital, and he had loaded the newest season of Stranger Things had just dropped.
Oh.
So he loaded it onto his iPad, and then we just watched it when I was recovering. It was awesome, super awesome.
I'm like emotional. So sappy. I'm a sap.
So as you probably know, Jonathan, yesterday I was asking people, or I was mentioning first that, in thinking about BDC this year, I realized that I come into the conference each year with like one or two things that are particularly prominent for me as it relates to hemophilia or maybe arthritis or some element of my health connected to the bleeding disorder. I'm wondering if you relate to that at all. And if so, is there anything this year that's particularly top of mind or you're seeking to get answers from about?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a weird place because it wasn't the intention of the liver transplant to cure my hemophilia, but it did.
Right.
So I really, I had the liver transplant because I was dying and I needed a new liver.
Yeah.
But as a result, one of the side effects, if you will, was I no longer have an active bleeding disorder. Genetically, I still have hemophilia, but my body through the new liver can now produce the factor VIII proteins. So, it's been kind of an adjustment period for me, but, I have a lot of questions about long-term effects of living with a bleeding disorder, whether it's, mental health, like we were talking about earlier, how you respond to situations and all that kind of stuff, or pain, because I'll be honest with you, Patrick, the pain doesn't go away. I have really bad arthritis in my left ankle, and I have to wear a brace. And if I walk more than maybe a mile, I blow the ankle out, and now I realize, okay, well, maybe some of those bleeds towards the end of my time with hemophilia were not actually bleeds. They were just arthritis attacks, but you can't really tell the difference, when you can't walk anymore. So,
right.
So there's that, I also, one of the things I've really discovered is the HTC model is very unique. And when you're dealing with other specialties, they don't have that kind of integrated care model.
Yeah.
And I still go see Dr. Tarantino and Dr. Roberts. Those are my doctors now. So that was super
lucky.
Fun. Yeah. But whether it's the transplant center or whatever, they're just not equipped. They don't have social workers. They don't they kind of really focus on their one area, like the liver. So if I want to talk to them about, some other symptoms that may or may not be related to my liver transplant, they don't really want to talk to me. It's like, are you throwing up or have your liver enzyme levels gone wacko? Okay. Otherwise, no, we don't really watch. It's not a slam on them. That's just the way they're set up. So, so I really think we need to do whatever we can to protect the model and find ways to, as therapies change and maybe people's demand on the treatment centers aren't as great, we need to find ways to service other members of the blood disorders community that maybe aren't getting served, whether that's sickle cell or whatever.
Right.
Because I think it's really important. I've been participating in the Athens 11 research project. I don't know what I'm talking about, but
not offhand. Could you just give us the top line? What is that?
So they started a study. Athens is like I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically the researchers in bleeding disorders, professional society, and they're doing a survey or a research project on post-transplant hemophilic or bleeding disorders patients, and trying to find out, what kinds of medical issues do they still have, and what are their feelings about their bleeding disorder, and where do they see the gaps in their care, and trying to see I personally believe that hemophilia treatment centers can continue to serve post-transplant patients or post-gene therapy patients, and I think they should.
Mhm.
But what are their needs? They're going to be different. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be an important thing for us to refine. We had Emily Wheat, clinical psychologist, on out of the Hemophilia Treatment Center in Denver on BloodStream
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago. And I think that's one area that we can be thinking about. We talk about the social worker, and when we discuss mental health within the context of an HTC, often it's the social worker from a clinician standpoint who we're sort of, looking toward, but it's well outside the scope of most social workers within the Hemophilia Treatment Center to go deep on mental health needs. That's
Yeah.
not what their background and specialty. And
Yeah.
so it's an incomplete service without someone like an Emily Weed, a psychologist who's on staff. So hopefully, to your point, Jonathan, as we look at what other populations we can serve, we look at things like a clinical psychologist and maybe a dentist. Like we've talked about that for a very long time. Should we just be standardizing having a dentist? And I'm not necessarily even advocating for it, but these are conversations that I imagine are happening, but are important to happen as we think about what the future of these treatment centers are going to be. Because you're right, like the model is unique and it's valuable. And I, like you, have experienced care outside the model and have learned firsthand just how valuable. I mean, it took that experience for me to truly appreciate just how valuable the model is.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. I mean, having that great care in that level of care from the HTCs, it helped me to be a better advocate when I was working outside of it, because I basically just continue to advocate for what I need.
Right.
But I don't have a lot of the backing that I normally have at the HTC. So, I totally agree. I mean, the HTC I go to right now has a dentist,
there you go.
which is great, but I know that's not a common, that's it's just a feature, but but I think that's great, to be thinking of, because you have a lot of bleeding issues in your mouth. So yeah.
And I'm always curious too, and I know we got to wrap up here, but I'm always curious too, like the dentist is one of those areas where people who are undiagnosed with hemophilia or von Willebrand disease, they turn up presenting at the dentist. And if we had more integration in the dental world, if we were able to like kind of do more to capture patients when they do arrive in that space, educate dentists when they're noticing prolonged bleeding so that they know one of the things that this may be is a bleeding disorder. And if so, XYZ. But anyway, all right, Jonathan, this time flew by. It's always great to talk with you. Thank you for being a part of this. And
one of our faves.
It's congratulations again on Blood of the Paladin. Like I know it's been out. We talk about it again, but it's a monumental thing that's now going to exist in perpetuity. And it's in large part thanks to your willingness to share your story and do the work to turn your story into pieces of entertainment that could reach people for years to come. So, and thank you for trusting Believe to work with you on that too. I don't want to take that for granted. I appreciate the trust that you have in us.
No, I have to say it's, the partnership with you guys has been so amazing. And I seeing it really get transformed into a graphic novel was just something beyond my wildest dreams. And you're absolutely right. This is something special. And I hope, I just was talking to a mom yesterday that says she's reading to her 4-year-old as a nighttime story. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's, so that's pretty cool. So absolutely. And I do want to make one small plug if I may.
Please. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
I am speaking at the conference tomorrow. I am on the Prologue to Progress panel about the power of one story affecting many other people. And I'm super excited because I'm with 3 other amazing people on that panel. William Borneman, Jeannie White-Ginder, and Val Bias. So these are amazing people. I feel like, wow, what's going on here? And 2 of them are my real life heroes, Val and Jeannie. So that's just going to be, going to be super special to be with them. So I hope people can come and join us for that if you have time tomorrow, or see it on the repeat.
Good
like
plug.
Yeah, and on the replay. Yeah, so Prologue to Progress tomorrow. It's on my
Yeah.
agenda as well. And we'll make sure to mention it again toward the end of the stream. Let's remember that, Amy. Jonathan, man, thank you, and see you tomorrow then.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks, friends. Love him.
Yeah, Jonathan's great. Awesome guy. Another great blood brother, very willing to share his experience and make it so that the community benefits from everything that he's experiencing and his
Yes.
dedication. It's very, very clear.
And can I attest? I did not know what D&D meant when we started this project. I remember I had an aha of oh, Dungeons and Dragons. You do not have to be a Dungeons and Dragons fan to get the overwhelming, I think, message of his story. It's
No, you
just
do not.
really wonderful. It's truly about a bunch of kids in a basement figuring it out. And it's really lovely and wonderful and fighting dragons. And I love it. I got goosebumps 17 times in that small little interview. I have one now.
I can see him. I can see it's not that cold in here. I can tell these are real.